Hi everyone, this is Eagle News. I am Rose Papa Angeles in Washington. It's Saturday, August 26, 2023, here in the nation's capital. The week's recap begins with former President Donald Trump turning himself in at a Georgia jail as he faces, among several others, racketeering charges. Dozens of demonstrators and supporters lined the streets as Trump, all within 22 minutes after arriving at the jail, got booked, photographed, and then released on bail. At the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, Philip Toledo has that story.
Today, former President Donald Trump surrenders at the Fulton County Jail here in Atlanta, Georgia.
His surrender comes after several of his 18 co-defendants turned themselves in at the same jail over the past few days. And like what the sheriff said earlier, Trump, like any other, was processed with a mugshot. Ignoring the 95-degree weather, supporters, protesters, and the press and other spectators waited for hours outside the jail for Trump's arrival. Trump has been indicted 4 times this year. And today, after being booked and photographed, he is released on a $200,000 bond. This amount is the highest known among the 19 charged in the Fulton County case. The consent bond order has strict rules for his release. Trump is prohibited from communicating with witnesses or co-defendants about the case. Intimidation of witnesses or his co-defendants is also prohibited. He cannot threaten, directly or indirectly, the community or any property in the community. This includes social media posts or reposts of posts by others. On August 14, Trump was charged with 13 counts, including racketeering, soliciting a public officer to violate their oath of office, and conspiracy charges. Among those charged in the case who turned themselves in earlier this week are his former lawyers Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, and John Eastman.
Philip Toledo in Atlanta, Georgia for Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
The first Republican presidential debate saw 8-second stingers duking it out. However, front-runner Donald Trump decided to skip the talk fest. Trump opted to sit down for a tape interview with former Fox News anchor Tucker Carlson. ThomasILikness has the story.
No clear winner emerged from the 2-hour debate, which at times degenerated into a free-for-all with candidates talking over each other. Even though Trump was absent, his presence could be felt throughout the 2-hour event. Most tiptoed around any criticism of the former president. Instead, they criticized the U.S. justice system, claiming it's being weaponized by the Biden administration. When asked whether they would support Trump as the party's presidential nominee, even if he's convicted of the crimes he's been charged with, 6 of the 8 said they would vote for him. Only 2, Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson, said they would not. Christie went on to say the party has got to stop normalizing Trump's behavior.
Whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
Ron DeSantis, who's been viewed by many as an alternative to Trump, has so far failed to gain much traction with the Republicans. He has just over 15% support, well behind Trump's 52%. His performance Wednesday did little to differentiate him from the rest of the crowd. Political rookie Vivek Ramaswamy, who's doing better than anyone thought, is the third-place choice, with support approaching double digits. He shamelessly praised Trump's presidency, adding he would pardon the former president if he's convicted.
President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact.
When he declared that climate change is a hoax, the Republican crowd booed him. Most tried to sidestep the climate issue, although Nikki Haley did say climate change is real. Viewers learned very little about what any of these candidates would do if they actually ended up in the White House. Most of them just talked about the problems the country is facing, but offered few solutions. After 2 hours of talk, it's unlikely that any of the 8 will pick up enough support to stop the Trump juggernaut. ThomasILikness, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
A new disturbing report released by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reveals that here in the country, 20% of women surveyed reported experiences of mistreatment during pregnancy and delivery care. Rosal Feria tells us more on Health is Wealth.
In a survey by CDC, findings show clear disparities by race or ethnicity and insurance types when it comes to treating pregnant women. According to CDC's Vital Signs report, mistreatment during maternity care was higher among Black, Hispanic, and multiracial women. The survey also shows that women with no insurance, that's 28%, or public insurance, that's 26%, at the time of delivery, experience more mistreatment during maternity care than women with private insurance, who are only at 16%. The most common types of mistreatment reported include receiving no response to requests for help, being shouted at or scolded, not having their physical privacy protected, being threatened with withholding treatment, or made to accept unwanted treatment. CDC says 29% of women reported discrimination during maternity care. The most common reasons for reported discrimination were age, weight, and income, and varied by race or ethnicity. Experiences of racial discrimination have previously been associated with pregnancy complications. Nearly half of women reported holding back from asking questions or discussing concerns with their provider during maternity care. This due to various reasons, including feeling that their healthcare provider would think they're being difficult or that their healthcare provider seemed rushed. CDC says, however, that feeling comfortable sharing health concerns with providers could lead to more accurate and timely treatment for pregnancy-related complications. And respectful maternity care can reduce preventable pregnancy-related deaths. Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra says bias, stigma, and mistreatment have no place in the country's healthcare systems. Rosel Feria, Washington, D.C. Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Let's head over to Ontario in Canada. Housing benefit applications have been reopened to help those struggling to pay rent. The new funding also aims to free up space in emergency shelters that accommodate thousands of unhoused nightly. Ashley Sakmar reports on community care.
Housing appears to be on top of the agenda for the City of Toronto and the Province of Ontario. Premier Ford has set housing targets for each municipalities to meet, and Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow has announced that new applications are being accepted again for the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, worth $13.4 million. The city and the province have jointly funded the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit, or COHB, which will support about 1,300 people in helping people pay rent anywhere in the province and relieving pressure on the city's shelter system. This program was established in 2020. However, Toronto has used up all of its COHB allocation in May 2023, which was why the application stopped. Approximately 9,000 people on a nightly basis are being accommodated by Toronto's emergency shelter system. The new COHB funding will open applications again and help create space in shelters for those in need. In the provincial level, the Building Faster Fund targets to build 1.5 million homes by 2031. Each municipality has pledged their target numbers, and the province will reward those that are able to work on meeting their housing targets. For example, Toronto has 285,000 housing units to build by 2031. If municipalities like Toronto are achieving 80% of their annual target, they will be able to access a portion of their allocation. If municipalities don't meet their targets, then they will have no access to the funding. The 3-year Building Faster Fund is worth $1.2 billion. Ashley Sakmar, Toronto, Ontario, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
In other news, Prime Minister James Marape of Papua New Guinea appeals to China, Australia, and the U.S. to make climate change interventions in the Pacific. This at the Melanesian Leaders Summit in Vanuatu. Here's Echo Hortaleza Quinola on Oceania at a Glance.
Papua New Guinea Prime Minister James Marape travels to Port Vila, Vanuatu to join Pacific leaders at the 22nd Melanesian Spearhead Group or MSG Leaders Summit. Marape meets with the leaders of Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Fiji, and French territory of New Caledonia to discuss issues common to Melanesia. Marape says he strongly supports Vanuatu's move to seek the opinion of the International Court of Justice on matters of climate change through the United Nations and through the international law to protect the rights of the future generations. He also calls on China, Australia, and United States to make real interventions in the small island states in the Pacific. Mitigation security and nuclear waste disposal management were also discussed. The MSG Summit concludes with the ceremonial signing of the Summit Communique.
Eko Hartaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eagle News, we live in extraordinary times.
Extraordinary stories from ThomasILikness today, from mind-controlled computers to Hong Kong's neon signs fading away to cat cruises in Singapore. These and more on Correspondent at Large.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. I find science stories like these fascinating. Things like, connecting a person's brain to a computer, controlling what's on the screen, not with a mouse, but with your mind. This man you see here on the screen is Rodney Gorham. He lives in Melbourne, Australia. He has ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. He can't speak, but thanks to this technology, he can share his thoughts with those around him. When he wants to say something, he uses his eyes to pinpoint letters on the screen, like you would do with a mouse. But instead of a mouse, Gorham uses his mind to click on the words. How does he do this? Well, researchers implanted an 8mm stent into his brain. This stentode detects neural activity. Clinical engineer Zafar Saraz says he's just amazed at Gorham's progress using the brain-computer interface.
I cannot say that there has been even a single session in which he did a click and I wasn't baffled. It constantly does it. And every single time he keeps on getting better, to the point where now he is, and it's like so instant. I just feel like I type slower with my hands than he does with the BCIs.
New York startup Synchron developed the technology. The next step is to get approval from health authorities to market the device. Neon signs. They used to be found in pretty much every downtown worldwide. But now they've largely become a thing of the past. In Hong Kong, they were at one time a mainstay of the city streets. Signs like these lit up the night, advertising the diverse businesses of the city. But then came the bureaucrats. City authorities began removing the signs. Safety concerns. A conservation group has restored some of the signs that have been taken down. Called the Tetron Neon Exchange, it set up an exhibition of this illuminated artwork. Cardin Chan says discarding the signs is a cultural loss.
It's not like, oh, it's very beautiful, of course, we could not deny that, but at the same time, it's like what these masters have been doing for decades to create individual pieces like this, but at the same time to create the iconic streetscape that make Hong Kong, Hong Kong.
For Andrew Chu, well, he's the 5th generation owner of Tai Ping Kun restaurants. For Andrew, it's a sad day as he watches his eatery sign come down.
When the sign is bring up, I still a kid, only a few years old. I still remember the day when the sign is turned up. And my grandfather's here, and I'm here. I witnessed the history. Today, my son will be here and to witness the sign turning down.
For her part, Chan says the mission of her group is to slow down the disappearance of neon. Couple of animal stories now. Do we have any cat lovers watching today? And if so, how much do you love your feline? Enough to take it on a luxury cruise? In Singapore, people can take their pampered pets on a luxury sunset cruise aboard the Royal Albatross. It's a 2.5-hour voyage along the resort island of Sentosa, and there people can enjoy the view of Singapore's skyline and a short fireworks display. During the trip, the cats lounge in spacious, custom-built cabana cages, while their owners enjoy some fine dining. The ship accommodates up to 15 cats and 130 human passengers. Sandra Lim brought her 2 felines on the cruise, and how did they like it? Well, Lim says she just can't please everyone.
I think it's 180 degrees difference. Momo seems to be having the time of his life, and Monkey is just wishing that he could go home as soon as possible.
The ship's operator introduced the cat cruises this month after the success of the dog cruises. It launched in 2021. Don't you just love a birthday celebration? I do. 2 giant pandas in Malaysia turned 17 this past week. Fu Wang and Feng Yi enjoyed a feast of fruits in their enclosure at the China Cultural Center in Kuala Lumpur. They didn't celebrate alone, though. Plenty of well-wishers on hand to watch the bears enjoy their ice cakes. It's pretty hot right now in Malaysia, and pandas are used to cooler climates. These 2 are on loan to Malaysia from China. The pair arrived in Kuala Lumpur in 2014. And I'll be back in 7 days. In the meantime, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. ThomasILikness, Correspondent at Large, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Before we say see you later, here's our beautiful photo of the week. This shot of Stortorget Square in Gamla, Stockholm, Sweden, was taken by our very own Nenita Manawis. Stortorget, which translates to the Grand Square, is the main and oldest square in Stockholm's Old Town. I would be smiling like this, guys, too, if I was there right now. Beautiful. Thank you all for joining us again. If there are stories or topics you want us to share with you, just comment below. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and X at Eagle News Live. I am Rose Papa Angeles. We'll live in extraordinary times. Stay happy and healthy, everyone.